What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Tuffy Talk. It's summertime, so that means one thing. We have one half of the OG podcast, Mr. Joe Giglio, on for you today. Mr. Joe, how we doing?
I'm really good. I had a chance to catch up with Kevin Keats. I guess it was last week.
Yeah, I caught that today.
I had my first conversation with Alec Makarevich today.
That's a good dude.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And, I kind of said to him, I waited 10 years to tell the Russell Wilson story and kind of straighten it out for everybody. So if we could do that now and skip ahead, make sure people don't forget how this all happened, I would appreciate it. So we sat down today. We had a good talk. So we'll have that a little bit later in July. So I enjoyed it, though. My first time talking to him, and gosh, what a freaking season that he had. My God.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
He rewrote some records that state today. We kind of covered those the last couple of weeks. It's been an unbelievable year for him and for state. And I kind of want to just dive in right there because I watched, I was doing a little homework because I like to come prepared for you because you are the consummate professional. And so I caught up with your Year of the Wolf, and you had Hayes on there on that podcast. And you guys broke it down. Give me your thoughts on the Year of the Wolf. We can start from the beginning if you want to, talk about, what state did this year, being one of only 3 teams ever to make a bowl game, a Final Four in both men's and women's, and a College World Series. Just kind of break it down for me. And first give it to me as an alumni and then give it to me as a journalist.
Sure. Well, I would say 24 is the Year of the Wolf. So while I was impressed with what Dave did in the fall, I would expect that to carry over into this football season. So we'll leave football out of it here for a minute.
Yep.
Really going back, you think about the cross country having the national title, and you might think, who really cares about cross country? But when you're at a school that hadn't won a national title since 1983 in any sport,
yep.
You have to give the women's team their due for winning now 3 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to Westmore in the totality of the women's basketball season that he had, where they beat UConn early in the year and Colorado early in the year, and then they get to the Final Four. And it was a real, to me, I went to the KYO game. I go to the KYO game every year, and I saw them beat Louisville, but it was my real first look at their guards. And I kind of said to my wife, I said, I actually think Wes has a chance this year because I really like those guards.
Yeah.
And it was funny because obviously they make it to the tournament, kind of a build-up payoff for what he's been doing. I saw him at the UNC Health Championship, and I said to him, I go, Coach, congratulations. Everyone is obviously so excited about your success in the tournament this year. I said I thought it was a great carrot for him, because everyone knows here what he's done, but it usually takes some sort of national success like that for people to really recognize what you've done. And he was, very thankful. And I said, how do you look next year? And he goes, I need some bigs. I don't have that many bigs. I'm still trying to find a post. And I said, are those 2 guards coming back? He goes, yeah. I go, Coach, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be all right.
Yeah.
He was like, I hope so. But you still have to score inside some. So, you throw in that now. And really the way that women's basketball has been elevated this year, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark,
yep.
And, for them to carve their own niche, I thought that was really important. And then, of course, men's basketball, what a roller coaster, the regular season. I thought they were good enough first 3 months. I was like, okay, this is a tournament team. I like how they're playing. I think they have some parts here. And then that Syracuse game happens, and I'm sitting here going, what? Am I allowed to curse on this particular podcast?
A little. You give me a little bit.
I don't have to. You just tell me the rules. I was just like, what in the world?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
And I actually think it's a good habit. Some people might think it's a bad habit. I have a habit of communicating with coaches after a loss.
Yeah.
Because Roy Williams had explained to me many years ago, when you win, everybody comes to the radio show. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody's your friend. He goes, when you lose, that's who you figure out really is invested in what you're doing and cares about what you're doing. So I had talked to Kevin after the Syracuse game, and obviously he was as dejected, if not more, than anybody else. And I think, they lose those final 4 games, and it really looked bleak. And I didn't like it. I think most people know I have a relationship with Kevin, and I didn't like it. And they go to DC, and I thought, it was kind of laid out to me. He needed to win. Yeah. Maybe not the tournament, but at least, they needed to make a pretty good run there. And the first half of that Louisville game, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't get it with this team. Where is the urgency? The Clemson game on the road, it looked like they had turned this corner. And ever since then, it's just been one big, throw your hands up in the air and try to figure out what the hell's going on. Then they proceed in the next 8.5 games to, the most impressive thing to me, Greg and Michael, the most impressive thing to me about the run, yes, who they beat is important. Mm-hmm. They outplayed all of those teams.
Yep.
All of them. Yep. Virginia is the only team that can sit here and say, we kind of gave you that one.
Yeah, they took that one a little bit. Yeah,
they did. Yeah. That's part of a run. You get a little bit of help from another team. Mike still got to make the shot now.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
9 times out of 10 that doesn't go down, right?
No, 99 out of 100 that doesn't go down.
Probably even better.
Come on. So, to play the way that they did against the teams that they did is obviously important to anybody who cares about NC State.
Yep.
But to me, looking at the run, there was nothing fluky. There was no Lakeista McCullough made 8 3-pointers. There was no, CeCe Harrison went to the Smith Center and made 9 3-pointers. It was no.
Man, you're going back into the books.
I know. Well, Greg, you're there.
I'm old. I got the references.
I think I know who you're talking about. Maybe.
I've heard the names.
How about Courtney Fells? Courtney Fells had one of those in RBC Center back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, it was that it wasn't fluky at all.
Right.
It was just they had outplayed those spectacular teams that were in front of them. And of course, for it to be Carolina in the championship game, it almost had to be, right? Yeah. As it was in 87, their last in DC. Yep. And then to beat Duke to get to the Final Four. Gosh, what a nut kick that would have been for State fans to have this pedestrian, white bread, super average Duke team go to the Final Four with Kyle Filipowski and Jared McCain. Like, come on. So for State to win that game the way that they did on the same day that the women punched their ticket to the Final Four, honestly, you would sit here and think they can't top it. And, we talked last year about how I know Jackson Lucas was going to be a sophomore now on the baseball team, and how and I have a relationship with Elliot that goes back to when he was first hired. And, I went to a couple of those early games. I went to a lot of the early practices, and I thought, oh boy, and I told him, I said, Serrano looks good. The kid from ECU looks good. Mm-hmm. I know you love the catcher. I think he can have a better year. But I said, man, hey, you're going to put your work boots on here. And he knew what he had pitching wise would take a little bit of time.
Yep.
The Willitson industry, the injury, the Van Dam injury really kind of hurt him, because he knows how he constructs those teams and how all of those parts kind of need to work together. But for them to really come on after they go to Duke and they get the Duke series, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. The Clemson series was a big turning point.
That was a big one.
Yeah. And I went to a couple of games thinking they're not going to make the tournament, to then they beat South Carolina, JMU in the regional. I was like, okay, that's kind of house money. You go down to Georgia, and, for them to beat that team again, the way that they did, with the guys playing the way that they did. And for me personally, to see Elliott get back to Omaha.
Yep.
That meant a lot to me. I know it meant a lot to him. Obviously, it meant more to him. But I did not want 21 to be his last experience there.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It means so much to him. And I get it. It means a lot to everybody, and everybody puts the work in, and I understand all of that. But that tournament means so much to him, and for them to get back, they lose 2 1-run games. That, quite frankly, that it is baseball. And in my conversation with AMAC, I said, honestly, given that it was 4 ACC teams, 4 SEC teams, I think any of those teams could have come out and won, and no one would have been surprised by who walked away the champion. It just so happened to be Tennessee.
If Florida State wins that game. But if Florida State wins that game against Tennessee, I'm not so sure Tennessee hoists that trophy, coming out of the loser bracket.
I agree. Right? I was talking to Elliott today. I said, I think today we're recording on July 2nd. So he goes, today's the last day of the portal. I said, okay. I don't think I'm jinxing anything. I'm like, Duden's coming back. Duden's going to be here. He's like, it's the last day. Don't jinx it. I said, okay. I said, I'm only a little bit mad at this stupid trend of one of your marquee transfers going to a SEC school and winning a national championship. He's like, believe me. He's like, I would prefer it the other way, but he's not. The conversations that I've had with him about Tommy, and same thing with Cannon. He understands the reality of what this college sports world is. So in a super long answer to your question, I think the progression of those events happening kind of one by one, and then Kevin really kind of unlocking the frustration. I think it took. You
heard a lot about basketball. And, you heard a lot in that interview you had with him, which was a really great interview. And
Thank you.
I highly recommend anyone that enjoys your podcast, and if you don't, like you said, go hate listen.
Sure.
I think it's a really good listen. I do want to come and ask a question about that interview, and you asked you as a great journalist asked the pointed question, and I think Coach Keats always does a nice job of sidestepping. And you asked him, and I think you know where I'm going with this about his job security. And he says he doesn't worry. Do you take that at face value, or do you think there's a little gamesmanship in that?
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
And I know you have a relationship, so I don't want you to.
No. It's not even that. Yeah. I was processing it in real time.
Yeah.
When we were talking.
Yeah.
Kevin and I were talking, because I was like, I know the conversations and I've been public about this. I know the conversations I've had with his agent. And I know, for me, selfishly, the people left at NC State who you can put on a list who actually like me, there's like 2 of them, Elliott and Kevin, right? So, that's hard for me to think in those terms that I, selfishly would have a coach that I enjoy leave.
Yeah.
And I believe him in this sense that with Kevin, he has in him an ability to and you're going to tell me, and I said it in the interview, but he has an ability to I'll use the word block out a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean everyone around him has that same ability, but he does. And I do believe that. And I do go back to that 23 interview I did with him at the beginning of the season. I said, you're coaching for your job this year. No, I'm not. I don't. He's like, I just don't see it that way. And I'm kind of like, well, what do you mean you don't see it? You just lost 23 games and, people are ready to run you out of here. Like what? And he goes, if I don't worry about me, then once I start worrying about me, then it's over, And I think that's the coach in him. And I think one of his real strengths is as a communicator, and also, someone who connects to this generation. I'm 49. Kevin's my age, or a year or two older. And I think he understands this generation better than just about any other coach that I've seen from my generation, right?
Yeah,
because, I got to yell at people. I got to bench. I got to suspend. I got to do this. I got to do that. The iron fist, right? And I go back to the Wisconsin kid, Brad Davison.
Gosh, that guy.
And I remember saying to him, aren't you pissed at this kid? Taking, I'm not drinking, I'm drinking water. I'll clean myself up. Taking the 6 charges, bogus charges. I go, if you win that game, this is the 2019 season. I go, you win that game, you make the NCAA tournament. You understand this, right?
Yeah.
Like this kid's theatrics cost you a spot in the NCAA tournament. Well, yeah, that's how you and me maybe look at it. The players on the team, they don't remember him. They don't know who he is.
Yeah.
I was like, really? He's like, really? I said, okay. So he's always been able to communicate to me like, okay, you and I might think one way. A generation had learned one way.
Yeah.
But that's not how this group kind of operates. And you could see DJ Horn in DC, after not playing the Louisville game and then getting out there. Yeah. You could see him every night being like, okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. And he got stronger too.
You want to celebrate? Nah, we're not done. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, he got the countdown wrong on a couple of games, but he knew.
Yeah.
I don't care. We'll be out tomorrow. We'll our team's on the floor. We'll be out tomorrow. So
yeah.
I think he has a natural gift of communicating. I think he has a natural gift of focusing in on what he wants to focus in on. Now, as I said in the interview, only one of us had been fired before. And, when I did get fired, I texted him. I said, I've never felt more like a coach in my life. I said, I got randomly fired on a Wednesday. And he was kind enough to say it in better terms, but he was like, yeah, but I don't think you have the $7 million buyout waiting for you. Yeah. And I said, you're right. You're right.
It's a little different.
I wish I did have that. So I do think the financial part of it is something. I do think the connections he has in the game is another. We'll be honest. If they lose that Louisville game and he's gone, he's probably working for Rick Pitino this year at St. John's. Probably.
Yeah, makes sense.
He's got that kind of relationship with Rick. But I could see him getting another chance because, one of the things that's often frustrated him is just kind of like everything that's happened since he's been here. And he doesn't like to enumerate them because it feels like an excuse. And everyone now at this point is like, yeah, it's the NCAA case. What does it really matter? Auburn made the Final Four, and I can't even remember Kansas won the national championship. And it's like, as I always kind of like to say to people, do you really think Auburn and Kansas were like shaking in their boots?
Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, we're going to do, Boo Corrigan came in and pretty clearly said, we're going to play by the rules. We're going to do whatever we need to do to win this case. And part of that was essentially playing nice and following all the, crossing all your T's and dotting all the I's. And I'm not saying NC State is perfect or Mark was perfect or any of that other stuff. I would just say to you, it's a lot harder to win by the rules, whatever they are, than it is to just, go out and say, Arizona let Sean Miller and coach for, the rest of the time, and Will Wade. I mean, it took them both forever to even move on from the Kansas, basically flipped the double bird to the NCAA and said, cool, Yeah. So I think a lot of those first couple of years frustrated him. And while we disagree why they didn't make it in 19, I'll always say the schedule. He's got some other ideas. It's hard when you only have the 1 year to show for it. So you get out of 22, right? And it's 5 years at that point, 1 NCAA appearance, and then that school record 23 losses. So
That was always the knock, right? He didn't win in postseason, and he's.
Oh, yeah, there's that. Yeah. I mean,
at least at State. I mean, obviously he had the success at Wilmington and all of that. So,
and I think one thing I would love to relitigate is they had a really good team in 23.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I like to say, bracket luck is real. They played Creighton in the first round in Denver, where DJ Burns was gassed by the first 2 seconds, and then now plus that's trouble on DJ. But then you get these phantom foul calls where it's like, you know, I did not like, and that's what he had intimated in the interview was. It felt like in the middle of last year, and I can certainly be critical of Kevin, and I did not like the Syracuse game in particular. But I felt like people didn't appreciate what 23 was. I mean, he pulled his ass out of the fire in 23. 22 was a bad team. Yeah. And he had bad messaging that whole year with Manny Bates. And, you know, it was like this, oh, man, if only Manny, Ewing, Olajuwon Bates was in our lineup. And it's like, I told him, I was sitting right here on my deck, and I told him, you got to stop with that stuff. Nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
You know?
Just win, baby.
And that's part of it. But I thought the 23 team was good. And I don't think he got enough credit for what he was really able to do with his back up against the wall. Yeah. And now this year, obviously, you see everything that had happened. And while I believe in the law of the wolf, and that still exists, I do think NC State shit is gone now. 316
it definitely feels that way.
Along those lines with the whole athletic department, it felt like the teams and the programs kind of fed off each other's success, especially with men's basketball being kind of the pinnacle of that. Do you think there's something there to that you know, success kind of brings success in other areas?
I totally agree with that. And I always said this let's go back to 13, 14, you know, Elliott getting there for the first time. Mm-hmm. I always felt like the Boston Red Sox, you might be a little young for this now, Michael.
I remember.
The Patriots won the Super Bowl in 2001. And that was the first time Boston had won, not the Celtics. The Celtics are a different, you know, they're a dynasty, the whole thing. Yeah. It was almost expected that the Celtics would always win, even though they were kind of in the desert there. When the Patriots won, it was almost like, you know, an athletic team like Florida football or Florida basketball, whichever order you want to go in with that. And it was like, okay, if the Patriots can do it. Now, the Patriots were this woebegone franchise. They were best known for getting annihilated by the Bears, by the greatest, you know, one of the greatest football teams of all time. And that was the Patriots calling card, was getting destroyed by the Bears and William Perry. Okay. So when they won, it was almost like, well, now wait a second. If they could do it, I think we can do it. And you see the Red Sox I thought, fed off of that as a city. So I think you're right. I think now, and that's why I say, let's see what Dave does in 24. Yeah. I don't want to count 23. I thought he did a great job to get where they got to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought, I think there's more for them. There's more ahead of them this year. And some of that weight is off their shoulder. I was just having this conversation with my friend Josh Goodson about, you know, in 22, it was like, oh my God, State football has to win the ACC. This will be the last time they have Devin Leary. They have this defense. They have this. And it's like everything felt just so constipated and weighted on them. Mm-hmm. And every game a referendum. And obviously from the jump, they were lucky to beat ECU. And then they no-show against Clemson and then all the injuries. But it just felt like such a, you know, tight, grippy situation. And now they go into this year, you know, hey, cool. I think a lot of State fans are like, you know, obviously you want to see them have success, but I don't think there's that same, you know, desperation to see football have a breakthrough, have the ultimate success.
Just to see State win something, not necessarily football. Just NC State in general.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'll just put it out there now. I would like to see a squib kick on the opening kickoff against Tennessee. Maybe not spot the SEC team 7 points, so maybe just so it's not 7-0 at the very beginning of the football game. That was
rough.
Yeah, I actually questioned whether I was going to go to that game. I mean, it was never really a question, but I just have the worst. Yeah, I have the worst damn luck in that stadium. I think I'm like 0 for 6. So I'm afraid. I'm hoping we go to Tennessee, win that game, or go to Charlotte and win the game against Tennessee, and then we end back up there for an ACC, and then again that my state shit is broke with beating Tennessee, and so I okay, I can go back to the stadium now because I swear every time I go to that place, it's a house of horrors for me.
It's been that way since the Louisville Meineke Car Care Bowl win. Yeah.
It
might have been the Belt Bowl by that point, but
I can't remember. All right, so I have one more question before we break, and then I kind of want to get your thoughts on. I want to take you back to May 3rd of 2023, and Joe Ovius pops that Blanton's, and you guys are starting on a new journey. Just talk to me about your journey over the years and Joe O's journey over the last 14 months, and what it's been like for you starting your own business essentially from the ground up and moving from terrestrial radio, which I personally I think is dead. I love consuming my content, via
on
podcast
your schedule.
And on my schedule. That's a great way to say it. So just kind of talk to me these last 14 months for you and Joe.
Well, it's funny. The day after we're fired, we end up at the Raleigh Times, and it was 3:00. We were drinking a beer, and one of our friends, Rick French, he was walking back to his office. He saw us and he came in, and it was almost like a biblical parable, right? Like the wise man comes in and gives you some advice. And he goes, you don't see it now, but the way that they got rid of you is actually a gift to you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, maybe. And it was, what he was trying to say was, by firing us and really not just coming out and say it was a economic decision, which is all they really had to do. I mean, the newspaper business has been doing that for the last 15 years. Yeah. By leaving this, we could just get rid of them and no one will care. Well, they motivated our audience to stay with us. And that audience allowed me for the first 10 months of our podcast to sell ads based on our audience and the way that they were responding to us on social media and the way that they were supporting the people who support us. And I would say through all of this, that has been the biggest thrill to me. I don't make the same money that I did, obviously, when you work for a corporation. I don't. But to have the number of not only sponsors come out and say, we believe in you, we believe in what you guys do, and we believe there's a purpose for what you do, you fill a void. The number of people, and really at the Final Four, and I think you saw a little bit of this, Greg.
Yeah, I did.
The Final Four to me was like, I couldn't have scripted anything better than that, or even really imagined it. Because it was a great reunion for NC State fans who haven't had a reason to get together like that. Mm-hmm. And then across, so many different coaches and so many different teams, and I've covered so many of them, and I've always tried to be honest with people, and I don't sugarcoat things, and some people like that, some people don't. But I try my best, right? And for me, the Final Four and the people who just the different, the guys who played for Les, the guys who played for Herb, the guys who played for Sid, Julius Hodge. Yeah. Well, but they had some good moments, right?
Yeah, Herb had a few years.
Yeah. So some of those guys, and then you see them and you realize how you are all connected. Yeah. And, I ended up getting a ticket from Scott Wood. So I sat with Stotts Bottle and Chase Cannon and Brickhouse and that, and I liked that team. Mark, that Sweet 16 team. I liked that team.
That team.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the real reaction there was also like, hey, I lived in Burgaw in '93 when you were at Sullivan. So and I remember you. I followed your career.
Yeah.
Hey. You got some people like Michael's age. Hey, when I was growing up, I read. You're the person I read in the paper. You're the person I went to figure out what was going on at NC State.
Yeah.
Just the number of different people who either came up to me at State Farm Arena or had reached out on social media with the "Where's UNC" and the "Where's Duke"
That sign was awesome, bro. That sign was so good.
So,
remember the guy with the Krispy Kreme hat that came up to you?
Yeah. I was like, what are you doing here, man? I was like, they're not here.
Yeah.
Hey, you had a good point, though. He's like, well, we won our last championship here. I said, you know what? I respect that.
Yeah.
Rep your team, man. And I think that's been, that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't really answer the business end of the question. But I saw Roy Williams again at that UNC Health Championship thing. I'm giving him a hard time, because I saw him in DC, and I had texted him when Carolina beat State at the Smith Center. He had this unbelievable sweater.
Yeah, I saw it.
Checkered sweater.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's Argyle. That sweater's amazing. And I go, but it doesn't have any red in it, Yeah. And he goes, and then when I saw him, I go, why don't you respond to my text? He goes, I saw your text. I wasn't gonna. When I told him, I go, I know what you're gonna wear tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he wore it for a championship game.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, I'm like, well, if you need to get me a sweater, I'll wear it. I go, it's good luck for us. He goes, so that part of it's been good. I mean, it's a challenge, man. You're asking for people for money, and that's some businesses look at it and go, all right, I'd rather, quite frankly, some businesses look at it and they go, I'd rather give you money than pay tax on it. And that's a good thing. Some people look at it and go, we like to be associated with you. It helps improve our brand. That's good. Some people look at it and go, hey, man, I need a return on investment. And that's where we've been lucky, where, people will go to Two Roosters and tell them, we're here because we heard about it on the OG.
Yep.
They'll go to the butcher's market.
Yep. Hey,
you were right. The steak sandwich is amazing. And I heard about it on the OG. So all of that, that's been awesome.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so we're going to pause there for part one here with Joe, and we'll come right back. Obviously, Joe, we don't need to put your socials out there. Everyone knows you and Joe O. But obviously you can get the positive vibes on YouTube and all the platforms out there that stream podcasts. So please make sure you go take care of Joe and Joe. They've always been great to us, so we'd like to return that favor. But come on back, Wolfpack Nation, for part two, and we'll see you real soon. Go Pack.